following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
I am back, and you are comfortably zoned with me, the Zig Zag Man, in Alameda, California. We got a reunion, a mini reunion. My buddies from the Bronx are here, Michael Preminger and David Hubler. Gentlemen, it's been a while.
Yes.
Michael, how are you?
I'm good. Actually, when I say actually, it's supposed to. No, I'm fine. I have my right little toe is. I didn't hurt it, but it starts dancing every now and then when I talk about politics. So I went to the doctor. And he made me leave his office. I have no idea what I'm talking about right now, but I just thought I do. I like to talk about Pickle Ball.
Yay!
You guys told me about that off the air. I have never heard of it. What is Pickle Ball, David?
Well, from what I gather from my wife, it's sort of like racquetball and what's the other? Squash.
Tennis.
Squash.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you played against the wall, I think, but the racket is smaller. It's like a little bigger than a ping pong racket. I have no idea where the name came from. That eludes me completely. I can't even think of how it...
Did you say you play it against the wall?
You play it in an indoor, one of these indoor, like a handball court.
Of course, here they're playing it. There's a tennis court where I live, and it's like a smaller version of tennis.
Yes.
With a smaller racket, and I don't know, not a tennis ball, and so just think of tennis for older folks, really, and it's kind of like racquetball and squash and
all those sports together. Yeah.
Wow.
That sounds terrific.
It's very, very popular here. I have not played it at all, but I know Becky goes to the rec center, and she was actually taking lessons. When she was growing up in Queens, Ralph, you'll be interested in this.
A good place to grow up.
Yeah, she used to go, and I know where it is. It's right off Union Turnpike. There was a schoolyard there, and she would take a tennis racket and a couple of tennis balls, and she hit against the wall. So it was sort of like handball with a racket. And she did this on her own on days when her friends weren't around, and she really got good at it. In fact, to the point where she was she's a fairly good tennis player too. She has very good hand-eye coordination or eye-hand coordination, whichever way it goes. And so she's been very good with these racket sports. And this one, she came home and said, "Oh, I love it. So that's as much as I know about it." Yeah.
Good. The first thing is
I brought it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you haven't heard about it. Usually these fads or whatever start on the West Coast.
I know.
Because
unless I heard of it under a different name, I wonder if they call it something different out here.
I don't know. Well, you could Google it when you got time.
Definitely.
Yeah, so I don't know how much of that they're playing in the Bronx. They used to play a lot of handball, especially. Remember, handball was very, very big. My father played a lot of that, and he had he even had gloves, and it was played with a little hard black ball.
Hard black ball.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
as you say, gloves on both hands.
Right.
And a good player could hit equally from either side.
Right.
Actually, like in tennis, you have to have as good a backhand as a forehand if you want to be competitive. And,
sure.
But in tennis, you actually are using the same hand, whether it's backhand or forehand. In handball, you can hit with either hand because you've got the gloves on, and as you said, Ralph, you can get really, it's sort of an ambidextrous kind of sport.
Right. Do you guys miss playing basketball? I mean, that was our sport as kids. The easiest sport to play in the schoolyard. Didn't require 9 guys. I miss that about being young.
Yeah, and Michael and I played a lot in the schoolyard together over at 80, junior high school at 80.
Right.
The basketball courts were in the center of it was a U-shaped school building, but the U was like in a block letter form, so it was more, it wasn't a round U, but it was a square U with one side missing. And there were basketball courts in the center of that. And every Saturday and Sunday, we were down there playing.
Yeah, that is a true city game.
Oh, no question.
Yeah, definitely.
I remember. Go ahead.
No, I miss it. I was never very good, but I certainly enjoyed playing, and I just enjoyed the camaraderie.
Right.
Right. So I miss that.
Yeah, you're right. That
there's so much emphasis nowadays towards homeschooling and what have you. And the first thing that comes to mind is the schoolyard and how these kids are missing the socialization. And I wonder what's...
Yeah, I mean, now it's all organized sports. That's the big difference. You have to have adults, and you have to have sponsors, and you have to have uniforms and all this other stuff, especially for basketball. We never had that stuff. I remember one of my teachers in 8th or 9th grade, I forget which, who was a young man at the time, he told me that over at his junior high school, I forget where in the Bronx it was, but it was there, when these guys would go out on dates on like Friday night, on their way home, with chalk, they would write their names on the ground by the basketball court. So they sort of like were reserving the first six. Yeah, the first 6 guys would play 3-on-3, and so that gave them an edge. And we didn't go to that extreme, but I do know that on occasion there was one guy who was, in fact, he was a pretty good basketball player. If it snowed, he would come down and shovel off the snow, so that everybody could play. And whether it was going to be a full court or half court, if there were a lot of people, a lot of guys, they'd play half court. And I think I remember it's one of the craziest memories I have of growing up. Is, Mike, you remember one court was like right near the building itself. The other court was out toward the wall and the stairwell, the staircase leading up. Yes. And I don't know why I remember this, but I do remember it clearly. At that court, on the court, standing there, waiting his turn. This is the court closest to the wall, not the school, but the wall. Waiting his turn was Calvin Klein. Now.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Now he may have been designing something in his head, but he was waiting to play basketball.
Well, did you guys have metal chains on the hoops? Or
no, I don't recall it. We had either they had string nets or no nets. I think where they had the chains. The courts that were part of like the park department. If you found courts in a park department, not in a schoolyard, but in a park situation, like the Oval, like the Oval over.
Reservoir Oval.
Yeah, near Bainbridge Avenue there. I think they had chain nets, but in the schoolyard, ours at least, we didn't have that.
Okay. Hey, I'm going to change the subject a little bit because in the political age that we're in,
we are
so many changes going on every day. This craziness. I'd just like to know, how you guys I look at it as almost a zoo. Is there any stop to the craziness? And what do you think? Start with you, Michael.
I've said this before. I mean, I don't follow it as much maybe as either one of you guys, but it's so disheartening and so depressing, and what comes out of this guy's mouth, and it's a nightmare, and you're waiting for it to end. What he talked about Baltimore, and I was just reading on the internet that the Obamas, was saying, you're wrong, but it doesn't stop. Like you say, it is a zoo. No matter what anyone says in defending democracy, this guy jumps in and just score. It's hard to believe.
I have a friend that's a Republican, believe it or not, and he believes that Trump has a plan, you see. And I think what the plan is, if you've been following the papers the last couple of days, and you know about this Baltimore brouhaha, I think his attack on Baltimore is reminiscent of the British attack on Fort McHenry in Baltimore Harbor in 1812, and he's recalling that from a previous life. But the real reason he is attacking Baltimore is to take our attention away from his planned invasion of Sweden. Now, well, yes. Now, Sweden there's a court proceeding sometime to begin soon against some American rapper who was arrested in Sweden, and Trump wants to free him, and he's appealed to the Prime Minister of Sweden to say, hey, let this guy go. Well, they don't do things like that in Sweden. As a former Swedish Prime Minister pointed out in the Washington Post today, that there's a legal procedure that normal democratic countries go through, and one of them is that the Prime Minister does not interfere in the jurisdiction, the judicials. So he was not going to do anything about it. But I think Trump, because he's so friendly with Putin and Kim Jong-un, where can he attack the soft underbelly of Europe? And that's Sweden. Because if you recall, he even said that he'd like to see more Norwegians in this country. Remember? He did. He said that. Not the Swedes. Yes. No, he was saying he had no problem with immigrants as long as they were Norwegians. But he did. He said words to that effect. He even specifically said Norway. So right then and there, he ticked off the Swedes because, the Swedes are very ticklish about their relationship with Norway. So he was driving a wedge there between those two countries, and he's planning to attack Sweden. I'm convinced of it.
Somewhat like Iraq and Iran.
Yes.
War man's Iraq and Iran.
Yeah.
But this sounds like a Peter Sellers. It sounds like a Peter Sellers movie from the 60s.
Right. Yeah.
Who attacked the mouse that roared.
The mouse that roared. Yep.
That was a great movie. That was on so many different levels.
Yeah, Leonard Wibberley wrote the book. The book was hysterical. I remember reading the book on the bus and laughing out loud. People started looking at me. Yeah, it is like that, But he has these enemy lists. You think Nixon had an enemies list? This guy, it runs into book length form. It's just incredible. But the city of Baltimore has enough problems. They call it Charm City. Well, if you saw, granted, there are parts of every city that don't look particularly nice. And years ago, I remember many years ago, when you drove from New York to Washington, and 95 was not built yet, you had to go through downtown Baltimore. And usually when we went, it was in the summer. So it was like today's temperatures, up in the 90s. And you would drive through downtown Baltimore, no air conditioning in the cars, of course, and it was just sweltering. And yet, there's an area of Baltimore where they look like an English kind of village because the houses are all attached and they all look alike, and they all have 3 stone steps leading up to the door, and they're like marble steps, or I guess, and people religiously cleaned those steps. It was like almost like something you watched for as you went through Baltimore to see this rite take place. People out there scrubbing the steps of the house. And for this guy first of all, Baltimore has a lot of really neat attractions, some great museums. The waterfront area is just terrific, beautiful location. And
the new ballpark is terrific too.
The new ballpark is terrific. Yes, it's sad that very few people are going to the games. Well, they're terrible. That's the sad part, because Baltimore, the Yankees, and the Red Sox formed the sort of triumvirate of the top talent in that, either the American League or the Eastern Division, and the Orioles have really fallen on hard times.
Oh, you meant Tampa. When you said talent, you said Yankees, the Red Sox, and Tampa.
No, I meant to say, and Baltimore. Baltimore used to be a major power, had a great pitching staff.
Oh, used to be, right, but now...
Yeah, no, not now. No. Yeah. Now they're at the bottom. I think they have the worst record in all of baseball.
They've beaten the Angels 3 in a row, so you never know.
Really? I did. Well, actually, they beat the Red Sox, too, the last time they played. But, I mean, it's just a disgrace. The man has no class. He has absolutely no class whatsoever.
Oh,
I think I could be wrong on this. I don't think he was criticizing Baltimore as much as poor areas in general. He might as well have been talking about Detroit or...
Not in this last attack. He was talking about Elijah Cummings' district in Baltimore. He was specifically aiming it at Elijah Cummings.
Oh, that's right. That's the Cummings thing.
Yeah, but you wait a little longer, he'll spread out to other cities. Speaking of which, this is an interesting statistic. Trump is famous for not golfing while he's on the job, right? Because Obama did too much. So he doesn't. Anyway, just about the only course, because he owns them all, so he doesn't pay any green fees. The only course that he owns that he hasn't tried yet or made a weekend, and certainly hasn't spent a weekend there, is the Trump course in the Bronx. Now, you may not have known. Yes, you may not have known there was a Trump golf course in the Bronx, but I'm telling you, there is. There really is. There's no joke. He built a course over near the Throgs Neck Bridge and Whitestone Bridge, that area of that's sort of like on the water there, and it's losing money. Now, let's face it, the Bronx is not Beverly Hills when it comes to income levels. So I think the green fees, that's for those who don't know anything about golf, that's how much you pay for one round of 18-hole golf. The green fees are somewhere in the neighborhood of $240.
Oh, wow.
Now,
whoa.
Yeah. And of course, they have had problems with the clubhouse, roaches and infestations and things like that. But of course, they're right near the water. But anyway, I mean, the whole point is that they're losing money. A Trump club is losing money. Now, you would think what in the world ever possessed him to build a club in the Bronx? But he did, and I think it's hysterical on one hand, and I hope it sinks into the sea. Because it's such an anachronism in terms of the income level of the Bronx versus the green fees, and of course after the green fees you've got to do all the other stuff. But I think it was one of the first, because he has one here too in Northern Virginia. These are like his second tier clubs, I think. But where he did go to that one because it's fairly close to the White House in terms of mileage. But anyway,
he must have a club in Moscow.
Very soon, yes, very soon, and also probably out in the steppes, that great vast area of Russia where they would throw all the dissidents and out there in what's that area?
What they call it?
Siberia.
Yeah.
Yeah, he must have a couple of clubs out in Siberia, in the permafrost, and that's where he's going to build his Trump Tower. Once he's out of the White House, he's going to populate the Russian steppes and all these areas. Yeah.
Well, to get him out of the White House, we have to talk about getting the Democratic Party together on the same page. What's going to do that?
Good question. Is there anybody?
Is the party itself going young and to the left?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's been pointed out to me that there are a couple of good possibilities in there. And you remember, I think I've mentioned this before. It used to be when they used to determine the candidates by picking wherever the presidential candidate was, they'd pick somebody from the other side of the country to balance the ticket. They'd have, so they have. In fact, Goldwater is a good example. Goldwater was from Arizona, of course, and his vice. How many people remember his vice president's name? I'm having trouble remembering his name right now, but I know he was from upstate New York. He was a totally unknown area politician, let's say. I think, if I'm not mistaken, he was a member of the state assembly, not even a congressman or a senator. And if I had enough time, I would think of his name. But that's how they balanced the ticket, you see. And the Republicans did it, the Democrats did it, everybody did it. So they don't do that anymore, of course. And I think the Obama-Biden ticket was a good illustration of how the thinking may be this time around, too. And I would not be surprised if Biden gets the nomination, he picks, say, Kamala Harris as his vice president, which would be not only a balance in terms of geography, but also in terms of age and gender. Exactly. And
but
certainly,
do you think those two are too left-leaning? I mean,
no, Biden
no,
doesn't mean left.
Yeah.
Biden is in the middle.
He's a centrist. Yeah.
I
just looked up Goldwater's running mate.
Miller.
William Miller.
Right. I knew I'd think of it.
Very good.
Yeah, William Miller. And what was his position at the time? Do you recall? Was it on there in Google? That doesn't matter. Superintendent of schools for the Schenectady area.
Former member of the House of Representatives.
Was he really?
Former member of the House of Representatives who experienced brief national fame is Goldwater's running mate.
Right, yeah.
Goldwater, who would, if he were alive today, would be considered a liberal.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
That's very true. No kidding. So would Reagan.
Oh, absolutely. Reagan
Yeah.
would. I would vote for Reagan over this guy.
Well, who wouldn't?
Tally says she'd vote for a ham sandwich over this
Yes,
guy.
right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
I mean, the more you talk about it this morning, I know I just mentioned it 5 minutes ago, but even more with Sweden and golf courses, it sounds like a satirical movie.
Yes,
you guys couldn't write. You guys are both humor writers. You couldn't write humor like this. This couldn't.
No.
Like this. No one would buy it.
Exactly. No one would buy it. Literally and figuratively, no one would buy it.
Right.
Yeah.
I know. It's like something. Yeah. You just seem to be. What astounds me is how. And I guess it's having a great imagination. But some of these people actually try to make sense of the things he does. Like.
Well, how do you make sense of the evangelistic crowd supporting him under any circumstances?
I don't know. But there's a very, very good. I found it particularly interesting as a former college newspaper editor by this former editor of the Liberty University weekly newspaper, which, if ever there was a misnomer, it's Liberty University, because it's an evangelical school, and the school newspaper has students allegedly running it, but the faculty has the final say in everything that goes into that paper.
Really?
And I mean, and the kid who wrote this article, he's like 23. He graduated from that school, and it's a long piece in today's Washington Post. You can see it online if you're interested. And he got in trouble the first year he was with the paper for doing an interview with somebody who didn't fall into the evangelical mold. And the only fault I have with the article, and it's very long, the only fault I have with it is that since he was considered such a dissident and a troublemaker, how did he wind up being editor in his senior year? Because the faculty had final say over everything, including who was on the paper. And I just don't understand how that came about. But anyway, it's a really remarkable, it goes right into the head of these evangelicals, especially the president, Jerry Falwell, Jr.
That's right. That's what the school is called.
Yeah. It's here in Virginia. They don't allow dancing, for one thing. No, seriously, they don't.
I know.
And so, as all of these things, and they called it Liberty University. There is no liberty in Liberty University. It's like
suppressing dancing. Now, for what reason do they?
To lead to sex.
Yes, sex. It's the way that it lets the devil in. Devil.
Exactly.
You don't want the devil on campus. No.
Well, I'll tell you what, if you want to really get kids to smoke, kids to have sex, just make a law against it right away, and they'll just do the opposite.
See, yes, that's so true. Now, when Mike and I were growing up, there was no law against it, so we didn't get any. Had we had a law against it...
Thank you very much, David Hubler.
Well, you did
we might have been luckier.
You couldn't have been any unluckier going to an all-boys high school.
What was wrong with
it?
Right, yeah. That's what happened. No law.
Yeah, well...
Proof. There were laws against smoking, and a lot of people on the parkway, on the fence, sat there and smoked.
Oh, yeah.
See? But there was no law against young sex.
Yeah, but you were in an all-boys high school, too.
Well, yes, but this was, this after school kind of thing. Yeah, that was a definite detriment to that relationship. You wouldn't. But I got to tell you something. They made all those New York City schools co-ed in the 1980s when that Title IX came in, I think it is. And I think, honestly, at least that's my own feeling, that our school, where Michael and I went, it lost a good deal of its uniqueness. It lost a good deal of the camaraderie, sort of like going to a military academy, if you know what I mean. There was a certain esprit de corps among all the guys. And I don't think you get
Were
that.
there women teachers at all?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Many.
Yeah.
Many.
Oh, okay.
Some young, good-looking ones, too, if I recall.
I remember one especially, but yeah, there were.
But,
no.
But yeah, I mean, I could understand why certain, like the military academies, tried for a long time to not go co-ed. There really is a certain, and I assume Walton was the, if you remember Walton, Ralph.
Right.
That was the all-girls high school.
No,
near
I don't.
us. Oh yeah, that Walton High School in the Bronx was all girls. And so if there was a dance, the two schools got together. It is somehow.
Ah, okay, like brother and sister high schools or whatever.
Yeah, sort of like that. Yes. Mm-hmm. Like
Gotcha.
Bennington and Yale or something. Before they went co-ed.
Now,
Yes.
Not to be mean, but if you're transgender, which school do you go to?
That's right. You can.
I mean, hey.
You have a choice. Hey.
And there's also the case of transgender people in the military. And
oh my
should
goodness!
they be in the military and they're being
I never even
ripped
thought
out.
of that. Is there?
Well,
yeah.
I thought they had that straightened out until Trump came in and changed it all around.
Yeah, he is going against all of that, and it's man power or woman power, if you will, and why should they be discriminated against? But
right.
That's another story.
Yeah, I mean, it sounded like for a couple of years there, things were okay. I mean, I don't know because I wasn't in the military, but once they determined that, yes, transgender people could serve in the service, you didn't hear any hue and cry. Nobody dropped their rifle and ran off into the desert or whatever. But now just to keep everybody on their toes, they're now going to reinstitute the death penalty for federal criminals.
Oh, that's right.
Nobody gets away from this guy. Not Sweden, not Baltimoreans. Not mass killers. Everybody's caught in the net. They're all. And then all those poor people down there on the southern border. It's just disgraceful.
Okay, now let me ask you guys both. The Mueller report came out a long time ago. He was a witness in front of Congress. Do you think he helped the cause or hurt the cause by his presentation? And does his presentation matter so much as the substance, David?
Oh, well, I think the press overplayed the notion that he did a disservice. I don't think so. He went in there saying he was not going to talk about anything other than what was in the report. He did strike me, though, as being, I won't say feeble, but there was something there that, he had the questions repeated, and he stumbled a good deal. Of course, you couldn't expect him to know each and every citation by heart. But he was quick to look them up. But I don't think he hurt his cause, the cause at all. simply because those who were insistent that Trump did absolutely nothing still believe he did absolutely nothing, and the other side believes the opposite, and nothing has changed at all. I think that where there may be some changes coming is when the congressional committees come to their own conclusion of their investigations, and we see what happens then.
Now, Jerry Nadler seems to be taking a stance that's very much against Pelosi's, and he's got a group, small group, but a powerful group of left-wingers, so to speak, who really want to get on with the process of at least coming to some conclusions. And it may be semantics, but he is wording what he's doing using impeachment, like pre-impeachment or impeachment hearings to this, that, and the other thing. That's for the first time. Do you notice the party is softening on when they're gonna make the stand, or hardening on when they're gonna finally, present the case?
Did you watch it, Michael? Did you watch any of the hearings?
I watched some of it, yeah, and I thought Mueller appeared, just as you were saying, if not feeble, then old and tired.
Yes.
Tired. Maybe after 2 years of this stuff, it gets to you.
Yeah, good point.
And I'm sitting there for 7 hours.
Yeah. And going through 2 committees, so we had to repeat a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't look well physically, though. He had terrible eye baggage or
bags,
coloring, and
Michael's right. I mean, he did not feeble to the extent, but tired and shop worn, or tired of the whole thing. I hope they get a couple of these other guys, some of Trump's ex-attorneys, not attorneys, but some of his ex-close confidants. Because
I can't think of his name right now. The guy he told to fire.
He's an attorney too, and I forget his name. He'll probably just claim attorney-client privilege and fudge it that way. Yeah, I forget. But there was others involved, so that it doesn't have to. What his words don't have to be the final words on that. I don't know. I've been disappointed in the press, particularly, although CNN has been very good about it. I've been disappointed in how they determined or what Mueller's testimony was really all about, and I don't think it was that at all.
Well, you mentioned CNN, and CNN said something yesterday or this morning about how his lies are becoming so much more blatant and obvious, and I just think that the Republican senators and what have you, they're just sticking with him because he's delivering Supreme Court justices. They won something in court about the wall.
Oh yeah.
And
5-4 decision. Ha ha ha.
Right, doesn't that sound familiar? And something else, speaking of the Supreme Court, her name escapes me. God bless her, she's in her late 80s. And,
Ruth Bader Ginsburg?
Yes, and she has befriended Kavanaugh. And much in the same way that she saw good in Scalia,
They were very close friends, Scalia.
Right. And
they really were.
She seems to be taking that stance with Kavanaugh, and that just surprises me because we found out enough about him in the hearings that I don't know what she sees in him to call him a good person.
Well, I always thought that thing was overblown anyway. I mean, the guy was 15, 16 years old. They thought they were kings of the world. They're out there drinking, screwing around, each trying to outdo the other. I mean, what you do at 15 or 16, should not be held against you by the time you're an adult and reaching that level of the judiciary. I just thought, I mean, he should have just come and said, yeah, it happened, but nothing really did happen. Those things happen to kids. I thought it was a little... Now, it wasn't the same thing as the Anita Hill case and her testimony. They were both adults at that point. So that didn't have the same impetus. It had a much stronger impetus than what they were talking about with Kavanaugh as a 15-year-old kid in a very...
all 15-year-old kids don't do what he did.
It was the environment.
Calendar of stuff.
It was the environment. It was that, privilege, class, snobbery. We went to a fine private school, We could do whatever we wanted, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Look at that kid. Look at that kid in Texas. The kid in Texas who actually raped a girl. The judge gave him nothing because he came from an entitled family. You remember that case? I think his mother went to jail. The mother went to prison. But he got off scot-free simply because that was the environment he grew up in. And it was crazy. I forget what the defense was called. It was, they gave it a name, something to deal with, privilege.
There's a case out here in California. It's a water polo player at Stanford University, very, very well-endowed young man in terms of money and power, and there was a rape case out involving him, and the judge gave him like 6 weeks in jail or some outrageous amount of money, amount of time, and judges are in these guys' pockets, and it's crazy.
Look at what's his name? I keep thinking it's Asno, but he was Commerce Secretary. He had to quit because he was the guy who gave Jeffrey. What's Jeffrey's last name? The multimillionaire.
Epstein.
Epstein. Yeah, he was the one who ruled on Jeffrey Epstein's first case and gave him 6 weeks in jail, and he could leave to go to work, and that's why
I think he was the prosecutor that agreed upon it, that made the deal in Epstein's case.
Well, whatever it was, I mean, he was part of this totally bogus, sentence. The sentence was crazy. The guy was able to go to work 6 days a week.
He had 12 hours a day where he could go to his offices.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I know.
It's a crazy world.
Yep.
Hey, guys, we are running up against the clock.
Okay.
This has been fun, a nice reunion. Let's do it again really soon.
Okay.
And, I miss you. I miss you both.
Yeah. Okay.
Before we go, I've been thinking about it, Michael. I got to ask you how your baseball playing, T-ball playing grandson is doing.
Oh, he's doing great. He's now it's called machine pitch. They did coach pitch where the coach pitches. Now he's on an all-star team at the age of 6, which is hysterical right there. But some of these kids astound you how well they play and catch and throw and hit at 6. and so it's great. I love going and watching them.
And he's enjoying it. That's the main thing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Beautiful.
Exactly.
Beautiful.
Thank you for asking about that. Thank you.
Hey, stay well, guys. Continue to continue.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Speak to you in 2
All right.
Okay.
It's Michael Preminger, David Hubler, two of my favorite, most interesting people in the entire world on the Comfortably Zoned Network. Thanks for listening, everybody. I will end, you guys probably never heard this. I used to end my podcast in this very way. I would implore my guests and the audience to keep their dreams wet, their humor dry, their children and grandchildren out of recruiting stations, out of military recruiting stations, and off the laps of clerics that wear dresses. And if you did that, if everybody did even 3 out of 4 of those things, it would be great. So,
okay.
I'm glad I made you guys laugh, and I hope you, as I say, I hope to do this again really soon.
Yep. 2 weeks.
Be well.
Soon. Okay.
Love you both.
Take care.
Adios.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.